It's exactly 9 years to the day since RAMI MAKHZOUMI passed away. Suddenly, and far too soon. Terribly missed by his family, friends, those who knew him, his work colleagues. When he passed away, I wrote to his father, Fuad MAKHZOUMI, and said, look, when the time is right, will you let me and my wife Jackie write Rami's story? Fuad was very gracious and commissioned us to write the CEO's journey, the life and leadership of Rami MAKHZOUMI. It's one of the best things we've ever done. So in this video and on this day, I thought it would be useful to share with you how we wrote this memoir that matters, so that if you want to write a memoir that matters, a legacy book, you've got some tips and hints from us. So how do you write a memoir that matters? But also got another question for you. 2 key points here. Is your memoir, is your legacy book an end in itself? Once you've written it, it's done, that's it? Or is your legacy book, is your memoir a means to an end? You want to do something, you want to achieve something with your legacy. The key message I want to share with you about writing a memoir that matters is to capture the stories of the people involved. To complete the CEO's journey, we interviewed, I'm just having a quick memory here, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 70, 75 people. Now, you may not have the luxury of being able to interview 70, 75 people. This took us a year to complete. You may have a much tighter time frame when you're coming to complete your memoir. But it is the stories of the individuals, of the people in the journey that you take as you craft your memoir, if it is your memoir. So capture their stories. So to some extent, your interview technique is what will get the best and richest stories out of here. And there is an interview technique called biographic narrative interviewing, where you ask key questions to get people started to reveal their stories and share their stories with you. And the key issue here is to stop people giving you vague platitudes. He was this kind of person, she was that kind of person, or he is that kind of person, she is that kind of person, and to tell you stories. So the best way I can think of to get people started is to take people to a moment in time, perhaps the moment they first met you or the person that you're writing about, and to say, when was the first time you met such and such a person? What happened? What was said? And try and get them to then tell you the stories. Try to get them away from talking in vague platitudes. He was this, he was that, she was this, she was that, and get you to tell stories. Get them to tell you stories. That's what really makes a memoir really, really fly. And then secondly, when you're getting to choose those stories, because clearly not every story will make it into your memoir, when you get to choose those stories, it's the stories that tell you something. Because what you want is for your stories to show people what you are like, or what the person you're writing about is like, or what the organization you're writing about is like. It's show, not tell. So you don't say he was inspiring, the process was fantastic. Tell us a story about the process. Tell us a story about the person, what they did, what she did, what he did. So collect stories. So that is part of your interview technique. And so I urge you also to remain extremely silent while you're interviewing. Get them talking about the stories, sharing a story with you, and then simply ask, okay, what happened next? When was the next time you were involved in that process? What happened next? Keep them moving and telling you about the stories that they recall. And then when you come to writing about a particular episode, you may have 2 or 3 different insights, 2 or 3 different perspectives on the same event. And those can be very, very rich when you tie those stories together. You're not simply writing story A from this person, story B from that person. You're actually tying those stories together to describe a complete event or a complete picture of what someone is like. So stories and storytelling and your ability to get stories out from people people is really important. What if it's your own memoir you're writing? If you're writing a memoir about your own experiences, I still think it's about the stories. And so even if you want to include your stories and you're the primary storyteller throughout, it's much stronger if you can get stories from other people who are present at the time that you're talking about. So you want to write a particular time about a product launch or a service, a process that you were involved in. Find the story, interview the person, call someone up and say, hey, you were there for this. What do you remember? What was it like? Tell me the story from your perspective. That is going to be so much stronger. Get the story in the words of the other people who are there. That is a very, very strong story. And as you craft the book, the manuscript of 70, 80, 100,000 words, I think this is nearer 300,000 words, the CEO's journey. We had so much material to include. As you are including the material, you're telling a story, you're telling the time frame of the story, the timeline of the story in as many people's words as possible, in other people's words, if you can. Even if this is a story about you and your legacy, because that has so much more power. This is all very well, and CEO's Journey fits into this category. CEO's Journey was a book we wrote to celebrate Rami, to celebrate his life, his story, what he achieved. And it was an end in itself. In some ways, it was very therapeutic for the folks who were telling us their stories. Remember, this was at a time when the young man Rami had passed away at age 33, so we were speaking to family, friends, and they were very deeply moved by his passing. So this was very close to the passing. So to some extent, when you talk to people and get them to share stories with you, it can be very therapeutic. Even if they're talking to you and sharing stories about people who haven't passed away, it's very therapeutic. You know, not everybody has the privilege to be asked to share their story of what this person or that process or that time was like. So really recognize the power of what you're doing here, the therapeutic value of asking people to share their stories. This is a very powerful purpose you're serving. And so this book, particularly The CEO's Journey, it was an end in itself. Once the book was done, there was a launch event, but beyond that, this book had sort of served its purpose. It was promoted and launched and is still available today. But the idea is that we captured Rami's story and that's it. I suppose the other issue with stories of this kind or legacies of this kind, memoir books of this kind, is you don't want to be seen to be taking advantage, quote unquote, of someone who's passed away. And so Fuad MAKHZOUMI, the MAKHZOUMI family are involved in business, in philanthropy, and also in politics. And so there's clearly a very strong reason why they didn't want to go beyond just publishing the book and doing any of the other things that we now coach and counsel our own clients, because it would be seen to be taking advantage of the passing of their son. So clearly that was absolutely the right decision. So let's put the CEO's Journey to one side for a moment and talk about you and the memoir, the legacy book that you want to write, because there are 5 things you can do to spread the message further and farther afield. So beyond marketing the book itself, the hardback, the softback copies of the book, the Kindle edition if you have one, I would suggest first of all that you make alternative versions of the book available. Many more people now are listening to audiobooks. Audiobooks is a booming market. So make your book available as an audio book. Make it available on the Audible platform. You can upload an MP3 to a service called ACX, which basically takes the MP3 and makes it available on the audio platform. That is a fantastic way to get your message into, or the message of your book, the message of the service or product or philanthropy that you're talking about, to make that available to many more people. You might also consider creating a video, sort of video interviews of the people that you spoke to while you were creating the book. If it was appropriate to do that, share the actual video interviews, the behind the scenes video interviews, or create a class class based on the book that you did, and to release videos or a video version of the book, or of you reading the book, or sections from the book, highlights from the book. If you remember that there are lots of public service broadcasters that have a book at bedtime. It's Radio 4 here in the United Kingdom. They do a book at bedtime, they read highlights, selected highlights from a book. So you might be able to create a video of you reading books, and that might work in today's phone age, mobile age. Secondly, and this I guess I've begun to allude to, is secondly, you might create products that share some of the messages or the stories in the book. Actual training products, in the same way that you would in your business career train your staff, or train your clients, or train your customers. Why not create a training product or a training program and then start marketing that as well? Because now we're going beyond the book. We're taking the messages that are in the book, compiling them into some kind of training program. This is the way our company has always done this, and it's a mechanism that you might find useful. So you can create products, training products, video products, audio products, create a little membership site, put that on your website, and then these are things that you can continue to market and talk about. This is where we're sharing our message, or the message of our founder. That can be a very good way to keep the message alive, because while people may not necessarily want to read your book from 10 or 15 years ago, they might very well be interested in an up-to-date training program that covers the services that you that you have, or shares the message that you want to share. And in terms of generating revenue, whether it's for your business or to literally cover the costs of what you're doing, you might want to donate some of those to philanthropy. If it's a service that you have that is born out of a philanthropic gesture, you're writing or capturing someone's life story, or the business purpose of your book or of your charity, then creating training products is a mechanism to generate revenues for those philanthropic services. So you can have recorded products, but you can also offer live training versions. So you might say, for some people, we'll meet in London, or we'll meet in Chicago, or we'll meet in Singapore, or we'll meet in Dubai, wherever you happen to be, and let's get half a dozen people or a dozen people together to run a workshop about these issues or these themes, how to launch your philanthropy, or how to develop strategy in your business sector. Whatever it is you do, whatever it is the legacy story, the memoir is about, take the themes and the things that you do, that you did, if you're approaching towards the end of your commercial life, your commercial career. Get what's out of your head and create a timetable, a program. Market it to share it with those men and women who've bought the book, and say, hey, we're taking this a stage further now. That might be a way to generate additional revenues, additional funds for the charity, for the philanthropy that you serve. So alternative AV versions of the book, step one. Recorded versions of training based on the themes that are emerging in the book. Thirdly, live versions, live workshops or seminars based on the themes that are emerging from the book. And fourth, of course, you can share your story, or share the story in your book, in your memoir, in your legacy book, through speaking opportunities. Google the phrase "call for speakers" and see if you can find a platform, a conference, where they're actually asking for someone to share a particular message, particular theme. And it may be that your book, the memoir that you've written, the legacy book that you've written, is a very relevant contribution, could be a very relevant contribution for that seminar, for that conference. So fourthly, speaking. And finally, then, the very services that you or your company or your philanthropy actually conduct. You may find that through telling the story, sharing the themes that are important to you, you may actually attract some direct customers or clients as a result of what you do. So your book, the message of your memoir, the message of your legacy book, can continue to operate in a much different way than just simply sharing the book that you've written. We wrote the story of the facilities management industry in in Leadership FM. But in the back of the book, we also highlighted opportunities to continue working with us so that we could generate additional funds for the foundation serving the facilities management industry. So 5 things that you can consider beyond the book that will help spread the message of the book even more widely. And remember that a book will generate $25, $30, £25, £30 sterling, but a training program, this is an AV version, we had the audio book on here in a video class, will sell for much more. So in terms of generating money for your philanthropy or for your foundation or for the service, you know, creating these products, these services takes a degree of revenue. You may be able to invest time in putting these things together, but if you need funds to create more platforms, more opportunities to share your message with a wider community, then you need to charge for the products and the services that you create. I guess coming full circle, there are 2 kinds of memoir, 2 kinds of legacy book. And firstly, there is the legacy book that is an end in itself. And this, for me, was the amazing project that we called the CEO's Journey. This is the story of one man's life. And clearly, it's just not appropriate to be seen to be generating revenues or apparently taking advantage of the passing of a young man. But if you're writing a memoir, a story about an industry or a different person or your own company, then I think that is perfectly legitimate to generate revenues, to generate funds for that. So the question I ask you at the start, at the outset of crafting your memoir, your legacy book, is your book an end in itself? Once you've written the book, that's it, the job done? Or is your book a means to an end? Through the book, you want to achieve other things. You want to share your message even more widely around the world. And then you need to start asking the question, which of the 5 ways to spread the message more widely should I undertake? Do I create AV, alternative versions of the book? Do I create products, recorded products to share the message? Do I organize live workshops and seminars to spread the message to those people, those fans of ours who are really keen to hear? Do I get on stage and talk more widely about the service that we have or the legacy that we're leaving? And finally, is your legacy business, is your philanthropy, is your business continuing to operate? In which case you can use the book, use these products and services, use these workshops as a springboard to continue generating revenue for your business, for your philanthropy. That's it on this day, which is a sad day for me and for many others as we remember RAMI MAKHZOUMI. I think RAMI was one of the most amazing entrepreneurs I've ever met, and I hope you get a chance to take a look at the CEO's Journey. It's available on Kindle, and all the profits, any of the revenues from the book go to the MAKHZOUMI Foundation, because this is not a project, this was not a project, never a project to generate vast amounts of revenue. The CEO's Journey was to acknowledge the wonderful, wonderful man, RAMI MAKHZOUMI. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.